The wheelchair stopped moving. Marcus Chen, 17 and full of himself, stood blocking the grocery store aisle. His phone was out, recording. The old man in the wheelchair couldn't get past the display of cereal boxes Marcus had deliberately knocked over. "Move faster, Grandpa," Marcus sneered into his phone. "Some of us got places to be." The elderly man's hands shook on the wheelchair's armrests. His Marine Corps cap sat crooked on his white head. The few strands of hair beneath it were thin as spider silk. His voice came out as a whisper. "Excuse me, son. Just trying to get through." Marcus laughed. The sound echoed off the linoleum floor like broken glass. "Son, you ain't my daddy, old man." He stepped closer to the wheelchair, his phone still rolling. "Look at this, y'all." Fossil thinks he's tough because he's wearing some old hat. The cereal boxes lay scattered like fallen soldiers. Cheerios, Lucky Charms, Life. The irony wasn't lost on anyone watching. But Marcus wasn't done. He reached out and flicked the Marine cap off the old man's head. It tumbled to the floor, landing next to a crushed box of Frosted Flakes. The eagle, globe, and anchor emblem stared up at the fluorescent lights. "Oops," Marcus grinned. "Butterfingers." The old man's eyes filled with water, not tears of sadness, something deeper, something that had been buried for 70 years but never really died. 3 other shoppers had stopped to watch. Mrs. Patterson from the church, young mother with twin toddlers, store manager with his red vest and clipboard, all of them frozen, all of them disgusted. "Pick it up," the old man said quietly. "What?" Marcus leaned in, making a show of cupping his ear. "Speak up, Gramps. Some of us can actually hear." "I said pick it up." The old man's voice hadn't gotten louder. But something had changed. The air pressure in the aisle shifted, like a storm coming. Marcus felt it too. For half a second, his grin faltered. Then the moment passed, and his arrogance rushed back like floodwater. "Or what? You gonna get up and make me?" He gestured at the wheelchair. "Newsflash, Fossil, those legs ain't working too good anymore." That's when the automatic doors at the front of the store whooshed open. Boot, steps on linoleum, heavy, measured, military precise. Marcus didn't notice. He was too busy performing for his phone, too drunk on the likes and comments already pouring in from his live stream. "Yo, chat, should I kick the hat?" He held his foot over the Marine cap. "Old boy can't do nothing about it." The boot steps got closer, stopped. A shadow fell across Marcus's phone screen. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" The voice came from behind Marcus, deep as a grave, cold as January. Marcus spun around, ready with another smart-ass comment. The words died in his throat. The man standing there was built like a mountain, 6'4", shoulders that could carry the world, gray hair buzzed military short, eyes like blue steel. And on his right breast pocket, barely visible beneath his flannel shirt, the outline of ribbons. Lots of them. "I asked you a question, son." Marcus's phone trembled in his hand. The man stepped closer. He wasn't young, maybe 65, 70. But he moved, like violence was just a heartbeat away. I was just," Marcus stammered. "Just what? Picking on an old man in a wheelchair?" The stranger's voice never rose above conversational level. Somehow that made it scarier. "That about the size of it?" The old man in the wheelchair looked up, his roomy eyes focused on the newcomer. For a moment, something passed between them. Recognition, understanding, brotherhood. "It's all right, soldier," the old man said softly. "Boy's just having some fun." Fun. The word came out of the standing man's mouth like a curse. "That what we're calling it?" Marcus found his voice. His stupid 17-year-old voice. "Look, mister, this ain't your business. Why don't you just—" The man moved faster than Marcus thought possible. 1 second he was standing 3 feet away. The next, his hand was wrapped around Marcus's wrist. The phone clattered to the floor. "Pick up the hat," the man said quietly. "Let go of me," Marcus struggled. The grip didn't budge. "I'll call the cops." "Pick up the hat." Something in the man's eyes made Marcus's bladder want to let go. He'd never seen anything like it. Not anger. Worse than anger. Certainty. The absolute knowledge that resistance was pointless. Marcus bent down and grabbed the Marine cap. His hands were shaking so bad he almost dropped it twice. Now give it to him, properly. Marcus approached the wheelchair like he was walking to his own execution. The old man looked up at him with eyes that had seen things Marcus couldn't imagine. "Sir," Marcus whispered, your hat." The old man took it with fingers that barely worked anymore. Arthritis had twisted them into claws. But he still managed to place the cap back on his head with dignity intact. "Thank you," the old man said. The standing man released Marcus's wrist. Marcus stumbled backward, rubbing the spot where those fingers had been. "Now apologize," the man commanded. "I'm sorry," Marcus mumbled at the floor. "Look at him when you say it. And mean it." Marcus forced his eyes up, met the old man's gaze, and for the first time really looked at him. The wheelchair wasn't just any wheelchair. It was a VA model. Veterans Administration. The kind they gave to heroes who'd given everything. The man's shirt, Marcus noticed now, had a faded anchor emblem over the pocket. The hands weren't just arthritic, they were scarred, old scars, deep ones. And the eyes. God, the eyes. They'd seen things, done things, survived things. "I'm sorry, sir," Marcus said again. This time he meant it. The old man nodded once. "Apology accepted, son." The standing man wasn't done. "You know who you just humiliated?" he asked Marcus. "You have any idea who you just disrespected?" Marcus shook his head. "Tell him your name," the man said to the wheelchair. The old man hesitated. "That's not necessary, Frank." Frank. The standing man had a name now, and he clearly knew the old man. "It is necessary," Frank insisted. "Tell him." The old man sighed. When he spoke, his voice was stronger than before, like the apology had given him back some piece of himself. "Staff Sergeant James Park, United States Marine Corps, retired. Tell him where you served. Frank, please, tell him." Another sigh. "Korea, 2 tours, then Vietnam, 3 tours. Marcus felt something cold crawl up his spine. Korea was like 70 years ago. Vietnam was ancient history. This man was older than old. He was a walking piece of American history. But Frank wasn't finished. "Show him your chest." "Frank, no." The boys learned his lesson. "Show him." The old man, Staff Sergeant Park, slowly unbuttoned his cardigan. Underneath was a white undershirt, and beneath that, scars, lots of them, surgical scars running in neat lines. Shrapnel scars that looked like angry spider webs. But it wasn't the scars that made Marcus's knees go weak. It was the medals. Park was wearing them on a chain around his neck, hidden beneath his clothes like secrets. Marcus didn't know what most of them meant, but he recognized a few from history class. Purple Heart, Bronze Star, Silver Star, and at the very center, one that made Marcus's mouth go dry. Navy Cross. "Jesus," Marcus breathed. "Navy Cross," Frank said quietly. "Second highest decoration for valor. You know how you earn one of those?" Marcus shook his head. "By doing something so brave, so completely selfless, that other Marines talk about it for decades." Frank's voice had gone soft, reverent. "Tell him what you did, Jimmy. Frank, tell him." Park's fingers traced the Navy Cross. His eyes went somewhere else, somewhere far away and long ago. "Hill 881, he said finally. "Vietnam, 1967. Charlie Company was pinned down. Machine gun nest had us trapped for 6 hours. Boys were dying." His voice was barely a whisper now. But somehow everyone in the aisle could hear every word. "I crawled 300 yards through elephant grass, took out the machine gun with grenades, got shot twice doing it. But the boys got out." "How many boys?" Frank pressed. 37. Marcus felt like he was going to throw up. This man had saved 37 lives, and Marcus had mocked him, humiliated him, made him beg for respect he'd earned with blood. "Tell him about Korea," Frank said. "Frank, that's enough. Tell him about the bridge." Park closed his eyes. When he opened them, they were wet. "Chosin Reservoir, 1,950. Chinese had us surrounded, 17 below zero. We had to get the wounded across a blown bridge. I stayed behind to cover the retreat, held them off for 4 hours. Alone. How many Chinese? Company-sized element, maybe 200. Marcus couldn't breathe. 200 enemy soldiers. And this old man had held them off by himself, in weather that would kill a normal person, so his buddies could escape. That's where you got the Silver Star, Frank said. One of them. Park nodded. One of them. This man had earned multiple Silver Stars. Marcus didn't even know that was possible. And the Bronze Star? Different hill, different day. Park's voice was fading. Telling these stories was exhausting him. Saved a medic who was treating wounded under fire. Carried him 2 miles through a minefield. The aisle had gone completely quiet. Mrs. Patterson was crying silently. The young mother had covered her children's ears, but she was staring at Park like she was seeing an angel. The store manager had put down his clipboard. His red vest suddenly seemed ridiculous, trivial. Marcus sank to his knees. "Sir," he whispered, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Park reached out with one of those twisted hands and touched Marcus's shoulder. "It's all right, son. You didn't know." But Marcus was sobbing now. Great, ugly sobs that came from somewhere deep in his chest. "I called you names. I knocked over your hat. I blocked your way. And you saved 37 people. You fought 200 Chinese soldiers. You." He couldn't finish. The weight of what he'd done was crushing him. Frank knelt down beside Marcus. Up close, Marcus could see Frank's own scars. A thin line across his throat. Burn marks on his hands. This man was a warrior too. "Look at me," Frank said gently. Marcus raised his tear-streaked face. "Jimmy Park is my uncle," Frank said. "He raised me after my parents died, taught me everything I know about being a man." Frank paused. "Let that sink in." "I was Special Forces. 26 years. 11 deployments. And everything I learned about courage, I learned from watching him." Marcus looked back at Park. The old man was rebuttoning his cardigan, hiding the medals again, going back to being invisible. "He comes to this store every Tuesday," Frank continued. "Same time, same aisle, buys the same things. And every week somebody like you gives him trouble, cuts in front of him, ignores him, treats him like he's worthless." Frank stood up, towered over Marcus. "But he never complains, never asks for special treatment, just quietly goes about his business. Because that's what heroes do, son. They don't demand recognition. They don't need parades or thank yous. They just keep going." Marcus wiped his nose on his sleeve. "Why doesn't he tell people? Why doesn't he wear his medals where everyone can see them?" Park answered for himself. "Because the medals aren't for me, son. They're for the boys who didn't come home." The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus pulled out his phone. His live stream was still running. 3,000 viewers had watched him humiliate a war hero. The comments were brutal, people calling him names he'd never heard before. Demanding he be arrested, expelled from school, worse. But that wasn't what made Marcus's stomach turn. It was the knowledge that he'd become exactly the kind of person he'd always claimed to hate. A bully, a coward, someone who picked on the weak. Except Park wasn't weak. He was the strongest person Marcus had ever met. "Sir," Marcus said, standing up on shaky legs. Would you let me push your wheelchair to wherever you're going?" Park smiled. The first real smile Marcus had seen from him. "That would be nice, son." Marcus walked behind the wheelchair, hands gripping the handles. They moved slowly down the aisle, Frank walking beside them. The other shoppers watched in silence. As they passed the cereal display, Marcus stopped. "Sir, what are you shopping for today?" "Just need some milk and bread," Park said. "Basic stuff." "I'd like to pay for your groceries, if that's okay." Park turned to look back at him. "Son, you don't have to. Please, let me do something. Anything." Park nodded. "All right. Thank you." They continued toward the dairy section. Marcus pushed the wheelchair carefully, making sure to avoid every crack in the floor. Behind them, he could hear Mrs. Patterson explaining to her pastor on the phone what she'd just witnessed. "Reverend, you're not going to believe what just happened. We got us a real live hero shopping at Kroger." At the milk cooler, Frank helped Park select a gallon of 2%. Marcus grabbed it before Park could reach for it himself. "I got it, sir." They moved to the bread aisle. Park pointed to a loaf of whole wheat. Marcus grabbed that, too. At the checkout, Marcus paid with money from his part-time job at the pizza place. $13.47. The most important money he'd ever spent. Outside the store, Frank helped Park transfer from the wheelchair to the passenger seat of an old Ford pickup. The truck was immaculate, waxed and detailed like it was fresh off the lot. Marcus stood there awkwardly, holding the grocery bags. "Sir, would it be okay if I came back next Tuesday to help you shop?" Park studied his face for a long moment. "What's your name, son?" "Marcus." "Marcus Chen." "Well, Marcus Chen, I think that would be just fine." Frank closed the passenger door and walked around to the driver's side. Before getting in, he stopped next to Marcus. "You learned something today," Frank said. "Question is, what are you going to do with it?" Marcus thought about that. About his phone, still recording. About the 3,000 people who'd watched him transform from bully to something else. "I want to tell people," Marcus said, "about him, about what he did, about what heroes look like." Frank nodded. "Just remember, it's not about you. It's about honor and service and the price of freedom." He got in the truck and started the engine. As they pulled away, Park waved from the passenger window. Marcus stood in the parking lot for a long time after they were gone. Cars came and went. People hurried past with their shopping carts and their busy lives. Finally, Marcus pulled out his phone. The live stream had ended, but he could start a new one. Tell the real story this time. He thought about Park's words. "The medals aren't for me. They're for the boys who didn't come home." Marcus began to type. "I messed up today. Bad. But I met a hero, a real one, and I want to tell you about him." The next Tuesday, Marcus was waiting by the entrance when the old Ford pickup pulled into the parking lot. He had a wheelchair ready, a new one he'd bought with money from his pizza job. Better than the VA model. Lighter. Easier to maneuver. Park smiled when he saw it. "You didn't have to do that, son." "I wanted to, sir." They shopped together. Milk and bread and a few other things. Marcus pushed the wheelchair and carried the bags and opened doors. Other customers stared, but not with disgust this time. With curiosity. With respect. Word had gotten around. Marcus's video had gone viral. Not the original live stream, that was still up, but now it served as a cautionary tale. The new video, the one where Marcus told Park's real story, had 3 million views and counting. "Staff Sergeant James Park," Marcus had said into the camera. "Navy Cross recipient, Silver Star recipient, Bronze Star recipient, Korean War veteran, Vietnam War veteran, American hero. And I almost missed it because I judged him by his wheelchair instead of his character." At the checkout, the teenage cashier, a girl Marcus recognized from school, refused to take their money. "It's on the house, sir," she told Park. "Thank you for your service." Park tried to protest, but she wouldn't hear it. Neither would the store manager, who'd come over to personally bag their groceries. Outside, as Frank helped Park back into the truck, the old Marine looked at Marcus with eyes that sparkled. "You know what you've done, don't you, son?" Marcus shook his head. "You've reminded people that heroes don't always look the way we expect them to. Sometimes they're old, sometimes they're broken, sometimes they're forgotten. But they're still heroes." The truck pulled away, leaving Marcus alone with his thoughts and his phone and the weight of responsibility he'd never asked for but gladly accepted. Every Tuesday after that, Marcus was there, rain or shine, sick or healthy. He missed parties and dates and basketball games. Because Staff Sergeant James Park had earned his respect, and respect was something you showed up for. 3 months later, Park didn't show up. Marcus waited by the entrance for 2 hours before Frank arrived alone. "Where is he?" Marcus asked, though he already knew. "Passed in his sleep," Frank said quietly. "Peaceful, like he finally got to rest." Marcus cried then, not the ugly sobs from that first day, but quiet tears of genuine grief. He'd lost someone important, someone who'd changed him. At the funeral, Marcus was shocked to see the church packed. Park's video had inspired others to share their own stories of forgotten heroes. Veterans who'd been overlooked came out of the woodwork. Purple Heart recipients, and Bronze Star recipients, and Silver Star recipients. The coffin was draped with an American flag. Honor Guard present. 21 gun salute. The whole ceremony. Marcus sat in the front row with Frank and Park's other relatives, people he'd never mentioned but who'd loved him quietly for decades. When it came time for eulogies, Frank called Marcus to the podium. Marcus looked out at the crowd, at the faces of veterans and their families, at his classmates who'd come to pay respects to a man they'd never met but whose story had touched them. Staff Sergeant James Park taught me that heroes don't wear capes, Marcus said. They wear wheelchairs and cardigan sweaters and beat-up Marine Corps caps. They shop for milk and bread like everyone else. They sit quietly in the back of restaurants and movie theaters and grocery stores, invisible to the rest of us. His voice cracked, but he kept going. He taught me that respect isn't something you demand. It's something you earn. And once you've earned it, really earned it, with blood and sacrifice and courage, you don't need to remind people about it every day. It just radiates from you. Marcus paused, looked at the flag-draped coffin. Staff Sergeant Park saved 74 lives that we know about, 37 in Vietnam, 36 in Korea, and one punk kid in a grocery store who thought he was tough but had never been tested. He stepped away from the podium. Saturday, back down next to Frank. Later, at the cemetery, as they lowered Park's coffin into the ground, Marcus felt a hand on his shoulder. "He'd be proud of you," Frank said. Marcus nodded. He hoped so. The video of Park's funeral got 12 million views. Comments poured in from around the world. Veterans sharing their own stories. Young people pledging to pay attention to the elderly heroes in their own communities. Marcus read every single comment, answered as many as he could, because Park had taught him that service doesn't end when the cameras stop rolling. It was a Tuesday when Marcus graduated high school. Instead of celebrating with his friends, he drove to the cemetery. Saturday by Park's grave with a bag of groceries, milk and bread, and a few other things. "I got into college, sir," Marcus said to the headstone. "Full scholarship, journalism major. Want to tell more stories like yours." The wind rustled through the trees. A cardinal landed on Park's headstone, bright red against the gray marble.